I'll explain more what I mean by that, but for right now, please join me in giving a very warm welcome to Michael Porter and Alan Murray.
Thank you. We haven't earned those applause yet, but we'll try and do it. And let me thank you, Justin, and thank you, Michael, for letting me be part of this event. You've been a real pioneer in this field and a leader in pushing this shared value concept. And it's so important to the future of society and the future of capitalism. So you and I participated in this extraordinary event at the Vatican last December. Extraordinary not just because of the frescoes surrounding us as we were talking, but extraordinary because we got 100 CEOs of large companies together for a day and a half where they really focused on how do you put the power of profit-making business to work to solve the world's deepest, most troubling social problems. They looked at water, they looked at food. There was I think the biggest panel was looking at technology and jobs and the relationship. My question for you is this growing? Is this a self-selected minority of the business world, or do you find this is becoming more and more the majority?
Well, Alan, I think, first of all, I think everybody here should kind of get a feeling for that Vatican meeting. I mean, this was a historic meeting. The Pope's, stated views about business are not flattering.
No one refers to him as a committed capitalist.
Exactly. Okay. So, but a set of forces caused both the Pope and these 100 CEOs to actually spend a couple of days together. The Pope actually personally shook hands and greeted every single person, including me. So why did that happen? I think it reflects a set of very deep fundamental issues which are profoundly characteristic of our age here. One is, and if you look at the Pope's point of view, there's just massive unmet needs in the world. There's massive lack of opportunity for human beings. There's all kinds of societal problems, and of course that's what the church is all about. It's about helping people live better lives and have more meaning and et cetera. And I think why did the Pope want to meet with business leaders? Because our existing institutions are not able to solve all these problems.
Well, you say not able. Not able or just not doing it.
Doing it, yeah.
You've written very persuasively about the problem at the core of our government these days.
Yeah. So I think part of it is there's just not enough resources using traditional government institutions to just spend the money to do all the things that need to be done. But part of it is governments that are, themselves around the world are not making progress. They're in our country. Look what's happening on healthcare reform. We've been talking about healthcare reform for decades and decades, and there's not even a coherent discussion about improving our healthcare system. It's all politics. It's all this side versus that side.
And even if a health care bill passes Congress this year, it's going to be fought out again in next year's election.
So it's a ping pong effect. As soon as somebody gets power, they force their idea down. And it's not about finding common ground. It's not about finding solutions. It's not about the nuances of how to make things better. Nobody talks about improving Obamacare. They talk about repealing Obamacare. So I think we have a system where our traditional institutions are groaning, are struggling under the weight of a challenging economy where there's more inequality in most countries, and that creates more needs. And we know we need to train and educate, but we're not making much progress in doing that better. So I think the Pope side says, my gosh, we've got to open up some new avenues. And who has the resources in the world to actually invest and to do things? Who has the capability to actually do things? Well, business. We have a chart. I don't have it here. They wouldn't let me bring any charts this year. This is like really hard for me.
Tough for a professor
really
to not have charts.
But if you look at the total resources of government, well, first of all, you start with the total resources of nonprofits. It's like this high. And then you look at the total resources of government. This is, in the whole country, it's this high. And the total resources of business, it's this high. Okay? So it's the Willie Sutton rule. Go where the money is, Business has the resources and the capability to get things done and to move things forward. So I think the Pope sees that. On the business side, I think there's virtually every company I know and every company I work with, we have a program in HBS which I lead, which is for newly appointed CEOs that have just taken over a very large company, and it's sort of a boot camp for a very intensive few days to really talk about the role of the CEO and how to lead one of these big multi-billion-dollar enterprises. And this issue of these business leaders are seeing a new sort of sense of obligation and need to engage in society in a different way. And there are very few companies that don't.
So talk about that a little more. You say more business leaders, new business leaders are feeling the obligation and the need. Where is that coming from? Where is the pressure to take a shared value approach to business originating?
I think there's really two broad dimensions. One is from society broadly. So employees,
we need it.
We need it. We need it. We expect it. Part of your responsibility is to tackle all these issues we have in our community or in our country. Their employees are increasingly demanding that their company.
That's a big one,
and that's
right?
A big
the
one.
Employee pressure is huge.
It is, and I think the up and coming people at HBS right now and the kind of younger generation is deeply interested in working for a company that has some purpose and meaning, and so these CEOs are feeling that and touching that. There's also there's continual raising the bar of the company's performance in a broad sense, so societal performance through NGO communities and rankings and scores and indicators that everybody's having to collect and deal with. So I think this pressure is being felt very broadly, and I think a lot of businesses. I think the first reaction of business to this was, oh, look, we already do enough. We do a lot. We give a lot of money. We all have CSR programs. We create jobs. We buy a lot of things from vendors and give them businesses. We already do a lot. And I think of the business. Some business leaders, 5 or 10 years ago, said, "Don't ask for more. I mean, we're already doing a lot." Compared to most institutions. But I think now the perception and business leaders' clarity is we can't just say that doing business itself in the traditional way is good and is good enough. And so I think there's a hunger for something that is actually consistent with and sort of advances the prospects of the business, not just is viewed as some kind of obligation that we have to pass out money or take on things that are really outside of the business. I think the core idea of shared value is that benefiting society is not peripheral to business. A benefiting society is actually a new way of doing business better that's actually more profitable. It creates innovation, creates opportunities for growth. And that is why I think this movement is starting to grow.
But now,
go ahead.
What about shareholders? Because I don't hear shareholders saying, by God, take a shared value approach to your business or else.
Yeah, if shareholders are shareholders are still. Well, first of all, there's massive capital now in socially responsible investment funds. impact investing funds. It's massive amounts of capital.
But still a tiny fraction
But
of
it's
the
still
total.
a fraction. Okay, most investors are still in the world of Milton Friedman. Anything a company does for social purposes is a misuse of shareholders' money. That's where most investors still are. They look at these concepts like shared value with great suspicion. They're concerned that this is just cover for not using resources efficiently. The 3G Unilever dialectic was a very interesting example of this. 3G is the classic: buy the company, strip out as much as you can, no innovation, no new technology, just kind of tear out all the waste, and that's very accretive.
So Warren Buffett, who we normally think of as the ultimate long-term investor,
Right.
Had his annual meeting this weekend.
Yep.
He now invests with 3G in Kraft Heinz. He defended them pretty strongly. He said, "Hey, look, it's more fun to create jobs than it is to take away jobs, but doing more with fewer people is the heart of capitalism, and they're very good at it, and they're just doing what they need to do as business people."
Right, and frankly, that is true. We have to make the obligation of the company and the capitalist system is to use resources as efficiently and effectively as possible.
There's no shared value there.
Well, what if doing that is innovating? We'll talk to Nestle's CEO in a minute. What if that is inventing a new product that's fundamentally more nutritional and more accessible, and marketing it to people to improve their health? There's shared value. That could be that's a very different kind of innovation in the food industry than we've ever seen before.
That's not the 3G model seems to be, and maybe I get it wrong here, maybe there's somebody in the audience who could describe it better. Cut costs, cut R&D, cut marketing, probably sacrifice some organic growth in the process, but then go out and buy another company to do the same. So growth comes from acquisition, not from organic
creation.
activities.
Not from truly creating new products, expanding the definition of the industry. I mean, again, the food industry is such a good example, but I guess the idea is that you have to use your resources efficiently. Social purpose shouldn't be a reason to be inefficient. Social purpose shouldn't be an excuse to develop new products that don't sell. Social purpose shouldn't be an excuse to use human resource practices that actually make you less productive. But shared value, I think, the reason that I think we're seeing more and more companies embrace this idea is that it's about doing capitalism better, more effectively, more efficiently, more productively, with greater levels of innovation. And it's not a contest between social value and business value. It's a synergy between the two.
Do you have a responsibility as a corporation to do both? Yes, you have to be efficient.
Yep.
Yes, you have to be as efficient as you possibly can. But do corporations have a responsibility to find the organic growth, or can they just say, we're going to give the money back to the shareholders, and the shareholders can invest in growth if they feel like it?
Well, I think I don't. The word responsibility is always, it's a complicated word, and it's hard to know what to make of it. But my view is the ultimate joy and the ultimate job of a leader is actually to build something and to invent something and to create new things and hopefully that creates growth. Now, some companies, there's not much opportunity for that.
Yeah.
And therefore, in some cases, you just want
to may have no choice.
Shrink down and hunker down, and that's the. But my view is you've got to push the opportunity to grow and build something and do something better and differently to the limit. You've got to put every bit of energy behind that. It may be that you can't. But ultimately, I think all good leaders have to do both. You have to be efficient. You can't waste money. You can't be sloppy. You can't have people you don't need. You can't, sell products that don't sell. Yeah. You can't do. But that said, I think the opportunity we have, we have all these societal problems, And we're not going to solve them by buying companies and stripping them out and laying off people. That's not the way. We're not going to solve any social problems that way. What we found and what we believe in with the shared value concept is that we can actually solve a lot of social problems through business, but not that way. It's through doing things differently, through innovating the way the business operates, both the supply chain, the way they work with their suppliers, the kind of product development activities and the kind of product attributes that they're building. There's many examples, and I just want to, you know this, but there's something now called the Fortune Change the World list. Okay, hopefully you're all familiar with that.
If not, we can remedy that problem.
Yeah, we'll remedy that. Yeah. And this incredible shared value innovator sitting next to me decided that if Fortune wanted to really do something important to kind of drive change in our society, that list could potentially make a big impact on how business thinks. Okay, so that was a shared value approach to running a very thoughtful, leading business magazine. Now, I told Alan this morning, but what we discovered was that the companies that were on the list, there were 50, and it's 50 per year, and you can't repeat every year. So there's a rotation of who's on the list.
Nestle was one of them.
And Nestle was one of them. These are 50 companies. They have to be $1 billion revenue minimum. They have to have had significant measurable impact on an important societal issue or area. In doing so, they've had to exhibit a substantial amount of business innovation. That is, they did things differently than the industry standard. Okay, so this was an effort to capture a set of companies that are progressing in this way, not the 3G way. We don't need a list of who is buying and stripping, and maybe that'd be a popular list.
We might do that too.
You might do that too. But anyway, so what we discovered actually is those 50 companies on this list had a median 5-year average annual return of 12.7% versus the comparable index of 9.7%. Okay, so these companies that were pursuing that approach to growing their business have significantly outperformed the population in which the comparables. And so we are encouraged. Yeah. We are encouraged by this because we think that actually there is not an inherent conflict between environmental improvement and business profits.
This is really, really important. So it's not, and by the way, I should say, you were very nice to praise the Fortune Change the World list, but we built this list entirely on the work of Michael Porter and Mark Kramer, who have been our partners in doing so. So,
well, thank you.
And thank you for all the work you put into helping us make those selections. But what you're saying is that the way to think about shared value is not a responsibility of the corporation, but an opportunity for the corporation.
Shared value is better capitalism. Better in the pure capitalist sense. More innovation, better productivity, products that meet better needs, products that are in market, that meet market's needs that are growing, fundamentally better use of resources and personnel and the organization, reaching upstream into the supplier network in order to make the whole supply chain fundamentally more productive rather than the old style bargaining power model. So yes, we see shared value as not a aspiration of being good. I just wrote down the list this morning. We have inclusive capitalism, creative capitalism, conscious capitalism, capitalism 2.0, inclusive business, sustainability, low footprint, circular economy, eco, triple bottom line. We have all these things that are out there now which reflect this tremendous tension in society and this feeling that business has to do more. We have all these ideas, but none of them give us the roadmap. And none of these ideas really tell us how we do this as part of capitalism, as opposed to some side activity that the company does to be seen as a good system, to feel good, to make everybody feel good. And that is the power of shared value. And it's causing us at HBS, we're learning a lot of new things in our curriculum. We're having to put things in our curriculum that we never looked at before because we never thought about a lot of these issues. These were not part of normal business thinking. We think they're accretive to normal business thinking.
But let's just stay with that for a second, Michael, because
Yeah.
we all love win-win solutions.
Right.
Pareto optimality
Right.
is what makes life fun.
We like that.
But not all solutions are win-win.
That is correct.
There have to be decisions that companies face where doing the right thing and doing the profitable thing aren't the same thing.
Yeah, well, that's true. There are, by the way, there are important problems in society that it's hard to see a shared value model to solve that problem. We're going to need philanthropy. We're going to need government to actually take public resources and invest in things that there is no business model to invest in. But I guess what we found is that there's an awful lot of things that if we're creative and open our eyes, that we can push into the business model side as opposed to the philanthropy and government resources.
We're not pushing
side.
the limits yet.
We're not pushing the limits yet. We're still learning very rapidly. But there are things where, again, businesses have to make a profit, and they are fundamentally owned by the shareholders.
Yeah.
And therefore, they have to, if there's not a business solution, then they have to that will take them towards this aspiration that they have. They're going to have to make the hard decisions. You can't stay in business in the long run unless you can be efficient in the short run.
Yeah.
And people think that there's a choice between long run and short run. There's no choice between long run and short run.
You have to do both.
You have to do both all the time, and that's the reality, and that's going to require 3G-like behavior. Sometimes not because you get acquired, but you just do it to yourself because you know that you've got to keep being efficient. You've got to get a platform that's viable. But what we're seeing over and over and over again, and we've seen this on the list, and you know this, we've had many discussions, we're seeing companies sort of opening up new territory and new opportunity, both internally for being more productive and using their talent and their resources better, and also for finding huge markets that they never even saw before because they were looking too narrowly at the conventional market, the conventional need, the conventional kind of way of competing.
Isn't some of it kind of an ordering of priorities? If you start with the question, what can we do to serve new markets, new customers, new people, as opposed to start with the question of how can we do what we're already doing with fewer people, you still have to do both, but you end up in a different place.
You end up in a different place. And I think, again, what has been so exciting about this, and this is now, 6 or 7 years of intensive work in this area, and this meeting has been going on for 7 years. What we're not seeing is the opportunities for shared values shrinking. The more we study them, we see the opportunities for shared value expanding. And we look at industry after industry after industry. There's just a recent report on insurance that's going to be released. And, if insurance thinks about its business in a shared value way rather than just pure actuarial, kind of doing calculations, it opens up a whole new set of business models.
Is it Discover
Discovery
Insurance
Health
in South Africa?
is a great example.
Amazing the effects that they're having on people's behavior, which is really a far more important determinant of health than healthcare.
Right, exactly.
It's an extraordinary experiment.
Yeah.
If other insurance companies adopt that approach, it could be huge.
Exactly, and there's now getting to be kind of crop insurance for small farmers, in lower income areas, which allow them to survive a bad climate season, and actually run their business with the idea that they can actually invest in making it more fundamentally productive. So I think the opportunities are expanding, but this is requiring companies to kind of relearn some of the playbook of what their business really is and how to run their business better. And I think the optimism we feel is that the statistics I just quoted, that
Yeah.
the companies that do that can actually do really well, and there's many more opportunities out there.
Michael, talk a little bit about technology, because as you know, going back to the meeting at the Vatican, the number one breakout group that the largest group of CEOs went to was the one that wrestled with the question of technology and jobs. I mean, we successfully managed the transition from farms to factories, where you went from more than half the population working on farms to, what, in the US it's probably 3%, and people moved to factories. And we successfully managed the transition from, or more or less successfully, from a factory economy to a knowledge economy, where people left the factories and did more mental work. Now we're faced with technologies moving very, very rapidly that threaten to disrupt the knowledge worker. Artificial intelligence, the pervasive use of sensors to collect data to make decisions better than you or I might be able to make them. What's the effect of that going to be? There's a lot of angst now that maybe this time it's happening too fast and it's too big for us to successfully manage the transition and keep people gainfully employed.
Well, it's a great, the huge question of our time. I think there's first of all, I've done an enormous amount of work in this area on what we call smart connected products, the Internet of Things, the power of digital and sensors and data and analytics and all that to change the way things are done, and it's absolutely happening. In front of it affects every industry. Doesn't matter what it is. There's a new paper that we'll publish shortly on augmented reality, which is the ability to actually give humans, in a very effective way, some of this information to allow them to do what they do better and more efficiently. For example, now you can give somebody the ability to fix a product, even if they haven't necessarily been a deeply trained technician to fix that product. You can show somebody how to take it apart. You can show somebody what part is broken with the data that you have about that machine, and a sort of normal person can fix a machine. But before, we had to have trained technicians to fix those machines. So all of this is rolling and is likely to get better over time. So you're absolutely right. Now, what we know from history is that there's more people employed today than ever before in human history. After all these revolutions in technology, the net effect is more humans have jobs. Okay. And what that tells us is that historically, new things have come along. The opportunity to do this better and more efficiently has created other opportunities to do other things and meet other needs that people have. So I think history is on our side. I mean, we've had much bigger, in a way, transformations in technology historically, and we've ended up, and what happens is that new things emerge, and that's what people do. But right now, we don't see those new things. Right now, we see a shrinking, of opportunity. What if there's no more truck drivers? What do we do? That's a good job. It pays well. What if we have millions of truck drivers all of a sudden don't have anything to do? We don't see those new things yet. The experts in this field are, quietly confident that the new things will begin to emerge.
So there's a second piece to the question, though. So you're confident, based on history, based on experts, that the jobs will be there. But another thing we've seen in the age of digital technology, where the marginal costs are so low, can easily be replicated, is growing inequality. That more and more of the returns go to the people at the very top, and a smaller share goes to the average person.
Yep.
Are you worried about that accelerating?
Yeah, well, that's probably the single greatest threat facing the world, is that gap. Because that starts to create, a set of conflicts and tensions in society where groups within society start turning against each other. And we're sort of seeing that playing itself out. Traditionally, we've seen it in other countries, particularly in the developing world. Today, we're seeing a little bit of developing world-like tension, internal tension here in America.
Does business have a role to address that problem?
Well,
if that's the greatest problem
yeah.
we face, what is business's responsibility to deal with it?
Well, what we learn over and over again is that the root cause of the inequality is almost always, overwhelmingly, has to do with education and skill. And that, if you look at all the data on all those men of working age that are not working, and if you look at all those data of who those people are that are underemployed, it's all people that don't have education and or skill. Now, why don't they have it? What's wrong? Well, my view is that gets us back to earlier in our conversation. It's a fundamental failure of our societal institutions. The U.S. public education system has been getting farther and farther and farther and farther behind. We've had a massive discussion in this country for decades about this. What do we do about our public schools? We kind of knew that this was a problem. We kind of understand this. And what have we done about our public schools? Nothing.
So, Michael,
we're still in gridlock. We're still debating.
Completely.
So now, can business do something about that?
Yes, because public schools, while they are clearly a problem, we clearly haven't addressed it, they're not going to deal with the truck drivers, right? The truck drivers are past that stage.
Yeah,
so do the trucking companies, is there a way for the trucking, you and I have talked about the AT&T example, which maybe you want to go into. It's a fascinating one. But should the trucking companies take some responsibility, or is there a way for them to get a business opportunity out of making these people who are no longer going to be driving trucks employable?
Yep. I think the answer is business is now starting to do that. We see, increasing large-scale examples across varieties of industries where people are understanding that accessing the skills that they do need. And now, Alan, despite this, everything we've talked about, we know that there's millions and millions of jobs that are not fillable right now. I mean, this is really true. And that's because there's this mismatch between what companies need and what skills are required today. The bar has risen. You don't, on a manufacturing line, you don't put products in the little location and then the stamper stamps it anymore. It doesn't work that way anymore. Robots are doing all that. What are you doing? You're managing 4 or 5 robotic machines and monitoring them on the computer and making adjustments to kind of make sure that line is working and the changeovers are working. So the nature of these jobs is changing. I think companies, we're starting to understand that companies, if they want to have the skills that they need, if they want to hire the people they want to hire, they have to actually get involved in this.
Yeah. So and that's what I was inspired by the AT&T example. I mean, they basically said, all you people are involved in switching calls. That's all moving to software-defined networking, which is a completely different universe.
Right.
And you can either face the fact that you're eventually going to be out of a job, or we will fund your re-education so you can participate in this business. It's a fascinating example.
And I think we're seeing efforts like that starting to grow. I think the business community was very slow to start to look sort of outward and take more responsibility for these issues in their own self-interest. I mean, part of the problem with shared value is, people look right past it. People say, "Oh, I can't find the skills I need to hire. Isn't that awful? That's causing me a problem." Well, why don't you do something about it, And because people never thought, that's not my job. I go out and hire people. I don't train people. Train people is not my job. People are starting to learn. I mean, Walmart's a fascinating example. Walmart has been a pariah in business. The company that everybody loved to hate. Walmart now, not only did they substantially raise the wages voluntarily raise the wages of low-income employees because they wanted more retention. They finally figured out, that if you don't pay people enough to have a decent life, they'll leave whenever they can, and you'll have this constant, turnover in your workforce. And then you'll have to hire new people, and that's expensive. And then the people that are on the workforce won't be giving a good customer service experience, and they won't have the skills to do their job very well. So now they're not only, they not only raised the wage, but they also created this whole academy program where they're training people for a career now.
Yeah.
Okay. Walmart is training people for a career. They're spending huge amounts of money on that. And that career is not just going to involve standing around in the store, it's going to involve the interface with e-commerce, which is now getting totally integrated into retailing. So again, that's an example, Alan, of a company that's starting to see that there actually is a shared value solution to this problem of workforce. And but what's going to happen in terms of this net creation of jobs versus people is uncertain. But I do want to make a pitch for people. Okay, machines are great. They're great when it's repetitive. They're great when the frame of reference stays the same. I'm confident that Watson can beat all of us in chess. But if we told Watson we want to play checkers, we'd slaughter Watson. Watson can't change their frame of reference. They can only do. We humans are good at dealing with change. We're good at dealing with uncertainty. We're good at dealing with situations that are not common. Humans are very good at processing and reconceptualizing and so forth. So we have a role, but in order to play our role as humans well, see, every generation of technology has allowed humans to be more productive. Every generation. And this new technology will also allow humans to be more productive. The question is, when humans are more productive, what are the new things we can take on? What are those new things going to be? Again, a very hopeful thing we're finding is this augmented reality stuff. You can take a person that hasn't had 20 years of training, and you can put them to work in a really good job by giving them the digital help to do their job. Which goes around the traditional training system that we have, which is very inefficient. You have to sit in school for 4 years, and hope you learn something. So here you get digital help. Augmented reality, you can send somebody into a factory, and there's the company's leading expert on whatever the problem is will be able to beam in and see what that person is seeing in the factory, and coach them in real time on, oh, look at that. Oh, let's try this, let's try that. So we are good, humans are good at a lot of things, but we have sort of run out of steam on our kind of traditional education system, our traditional skill system. Right. And now we have so much more information and so much more potential insight that we ought to be able to be more productive and more powerful and take on new things, but that transition is a hard one.
My colleague Jeff Colvin has a really good way of putting this. He said that the last 150 years of human history have been about making people better machines, more efficient cogs in the process, and said now we don't need to do that anymore. Machines are going to take care of themselves just fine. We need to make people better people to deal with the difficult.
Exactly. And we have to take advantage of the inherent capabilities we have. Which is much more flexible and much more multi. We can process information incredibly fast through seeing things. We can look in this room and we can get information that a machine will almost never be able to sense in terms of what's actually happening now in this place at this time. But we have been sort of little machines. We've been doing kind of repetitive tasks, and we've been doing them, over and over and over again. And that's not really what humans are capable of doing.
This is such a rich conversation. There's so many different ways we could go. We've gotten a lot of questions. Let's take some of these questions. And the first one is one of your favorite topics. Partisan politics.
Yes.
Which you analyzed in an article in what magazine was that?
Oh, it was Fortune. It was Fortune.
And the question is, given this political climate, can business act as a neutral broker in a new way through shared value? Can business help solve the political problem?
Yeah. Well, I would say that is an extremely dangerous question to ask me. So this is my fundamental passion right now for the last 18 months with a co-author called Catherine Gale, who's an expert in this, has been to understand why the partisan politics system has brought our country to a screeching halt. And so I've been doing a lot of work on the politics industry. And what we find is if you look at politics as an industry and you realize that all the players in politics are private institutions like parties and lobbyists and campaign managers and pollsters, and by the way, the media now is deeply involved in politics. Then you understand, what the root causes are of our political gridlock. But and so hopefully we publish an article in Fortune. I hope people will take a look at that. That's a short version.
We can remedy that too if they haven't.
We have a very, very big, serious paper on this that we're developing, and our world would be so much better if we could actually move forward on tax reform, budget reform, education reform, healthcare reform, gun reform, where the evidence is overwhelming that the U.S. has just made very little progress, while a lot of other countries have done better than we have. So I think the political system is a failure of about a failure of government to pursue practical solutions to the problems that we have, because the game has been set up as a left-right game rather than a find the solution game. And the solution to every problem is never left or never right. That's too simple. It's always somehow a compromise, a synthesis of the relevant point of views that need to integrate and weigh and balance complexity and ultimately come to a compromise. And our political system now is engineered so that that does not happen. And so that is a fundamental problem. And that's, there are things we can do about that, and we must do about that. And the reason I did this work is I came to believe this is our most important problem in society, this problem. It's our political system. It's not technology. It's not that, there's a lot of entrepreneurship and good people in America. It's this problem. Now, can business deal with this or help deal with this problem? There's two ways that business can deal with the problem. One is how it engages in the political system itself, and the other is kind of shared value is a sort of a way to mitigate the consequences of the problem, if you will. Business could ultimately take on more of what good government should be doing. And I think shared value is good for business in its own right. So I think business should give that its full shot. And I think that will help. And I think the degree to which companies are seen as actually doing business better and more powerfully delivering better products that better meet needs, dealing with their workforce like Walmart better, dealing with their supply chain like we'll talk about Nestle later better. I think the more companies do that, the better it'll be for the general sense of trust that we have in the society.
You think that's a better route than directly engaging in political wheeling, dealing, contributions, lobbying, et cetera?
Yeah, the problem with business today is instead of business has engaged in politics lately, or the people that engage are engaging not to create the best solution for business. They're engaged to create the best solution for their business, okay? So we have a system where business has become a special interest. And we've just joined all the other special interests that are trying to push their particular point of view. Rather than business being the driving force between improving the entire business climate for all business. And we're going to, I have a pretty good pulpit on this one, and we're going to really go at it with the business community to start playing a positive role in our political system, not a negative role, and to amplify the negative parts of our political system. But that does not mean that is important. But ultimately, I think in the long run, if business can redefine how it does business in its own self-interest around the shared value themes, I think that will be more powerful in the long run.
Another question. You talked about shareholder pressure and shareholder interest. Do you see any good examples out there of investors who are driving shared value?
Well, the mostly of the investors that are driving this, there's a whole set of funds that have grown up around social impact investing that I think are supporting and really looking for companies that are delivering, shared value, not just profit. not just growth. And I think there's a number of funds, the DBL fund. There's a number of funds that do that now. There's Generation Capital. There's some bigger funds that are looking for shared value companies. We think it's a gigantic opportunity. I mean, the data from the Fortune list is pretty interesting. You can significantly outperform the index if you find the shared value companies that are really doing this. But I think there's also a gigantic set of investment pools that are sort of socially responsible investing. But those are invested based on sort of ESG indicators, environmental, social, and these are sort of broad things like are you sustainable? Do you do recycling? Are you following kind of the basic rules of being a sound company? And what we find is that the companies that do well in ESG indicators actually don't do better, in their industry, because most of the things that these indicators are measuring are not core to the business. Shared value is all about identifying the social impacts that are really fundamental to that particular business. So for Nestle, it would be health. For other companies, it would be something totally different. And so I think the investment community is the next big. It's the last big piece of the shared value puzzle. And Mark and I are working on a paper on this, and there'll be hopefully a campaign, because we think investors are overlooking a integral, fundamental part of investment analysis. Yeah. They're missing some of the most exciting things that companies are doing that help them grow faster and drive profitability faster. So we hope that over time the investment community will mature. I think it's changing, but it's changing slowly. It's only a niche now that is really, really focused on shared value.
Michael, you talked earlier about 3G, and there's a question about this, that Kraft Heinz went after Unilever. Ultimately, the bid to acquire Unilever failed, but it did force Paul Polman to change his tack somewhat. Is that a setback, the question? Is that a setback to shared value?
Well, it's a great question, and it was sort of a seminal moment, if you will, in this discussion, because these are two massive titans,
really very different models of capitalism.
With totally different models of capitalism. One, a really pure, take out cost and people, and get rid of products that aren't selling and are not profitable, and just hunker down. And that ends up shrinking the business, usually. And then you have to go buy another one and then do the same thing and shrink that one and go buy another one and do the same thing. So that's kind of the 3G model. And then the Pullman model was very much built on, the word they use is sustainability. We wish they would use a different word.
Two words. Shared value. You'd like them to use.
But there's a lot of kind of shared value kind of thinking involved in Unilever and how they've approached it. They've taken a very sustained long-term view in that. And Paul Polman had the great wisdom of really bringing along his board, and there was really a shared commitment on the board and in the management team and in the whole company about this philosophy, and that they were going to approach their businesses in these ways, and I think which I think are fundamentally shared value. Now the question, so I think that it was I think quite interesting and quite powerful that they rejected that bid. They could have gotten a bump, a short-term bump, but they rejected it. And now what they did,
rejected it, but they said, we got to pay more attention to the shareholders.
We did, and it may have been. This is a case where a company got a little bit unbalanced and was paying a lot of attention to the long-term stuff, and really not just being rigorous enough about managing the short-term stuff. And so I think, and that happens. That happens. You get enamored with your long-term vision, and you kind of forget that you got to be tough-minded on every day, on every choice you make. So I think hopefully in the end this will be the result that we'd like to see happen. This will be a result where a company that may have gotten a little bit too caught up in this longer-term vision sort of lost sight on the fact that they also at the same time have to keep the business, efficient and profitable, and we can't waste.
Michael, we're almost out of time,
Yep.
and I have a very big question, and you're going to have to answer it in about 10 seconds.
Oh, it's impossible.
Let me try it. This is called a Shared Value Leadership Summit. The nature of leadership, the demands on leadership at the very top have seemed to have changed very much in this world we've been discussing for the last 40 minutes. What does it mean to the leaders of these companies?
Well, I think first of all, shared value sort of cries out for a corporate purpose that is sort of directly linked to society, and so I think shared value says that when we think about what we're trying to do as a company, our mission, our vision, our purpose, whatever we call it, we've got to connect that purpose to the society in which we operate. We can't define our purpose in terms of making our product, or we can't define our purpose in terms of being a good company or a good citizen. We have to talk about how we're engaging in society. So again, Nestle's a good example we'll talk about later. We're not a food company, we're a health and nutrition company.
And that has to come from the top.
And that has to come from the top, and that has to be a kind of a shared purpose that people can get excited about. And I think that's one of the profound implications of shared value thinking. The second thing about the leadership is, ultimately, strategy is about creating a distinctive competitive advantage. It's about finding a unique way of competing in your industry. And what we're increasingly finding is that those unique ways of competing and those competitive advantage are coming from shared value. They're not coming from conventional product, marketing segmentation approaches. It's finding new market segments that have been underserved. It's finding ways to make our products be powerful solutions to the needs of society, whether it's energy efficiency or whether it's reduction of emissions or whether it's nutrition in our products. So I think that shared value is, to us, one of the most powerful levers now that every good leader must have. If they're going to create that company that attracts the best people, that inspires confidence in the stakeholders, and hopefully, ultimately, is going to be rewarded in superior shareholder value. But those days are still. We're still in a process of hopefully lurching towards that place.
Michael, thank you. Fascinating conversation. I think a good start to the day. A round of applause for Michael.
Thank you.
Porter, please.
Good.